Hello everyone and welcome back to another Deck Tech. Today we are looking at Uril, the Misty Man himself. Uril is a 5-mana 5/5 with hexproof, and he gets +2/+2 for each aura attached to him. So the whole focus is Voltron. We're going to beef him up. Let's see what happens. So why Uril? So Uril is tough to deal with. Once he's on the board, hexproof makes him a big hassle, right? And assuming that we put all of the auras from this deck onto Uril, he's going to be, now hear me out on this, a 194, 190 with hexproof trample, double strike vigilance, first strike annihilator 2, flying indestructible, protection from creatures, double lifelink, and fire breathing. And I'll explain those last two in a little bit. So the reason I built this, because this guy came back in Shards of Alara, the reason I'm doing this deck tech is because I was in a mood today, right? Uril holds a special place in my heart, right? He was the second commander I've ever built. He was the first one I made from scratch, but he was ruined in water damage, so I no longer have Uril. It was bad. Most of the cards were not salvageable. It's no big deal, but I always wonder what could have been. So the game plan. Uril needs to be on the field to win. He is our win condition. We win with commander damage, which is 21 damage with your commander, for those of you who don't know, but I'll assume you do. You can use some of the other creatures as targets for Voltroning him out. Voltron, I know I've been saying that a little bit, it just basically means you put a bunch of stuff on one guy to make him really strong and don't really care about the other guys. So you really beef up one guy as Voltron. You can use our other creatures as targets. There's a couple that are substitutes if Uril is, for some reason, unable to do it. But it'll be slower because we do want to get to that 21 damage fast. We use a lot of Enchantress effects to draw more cards while making Uril a constant problem for our opponents. And he just wins by being so unreasonably big with keywords and all that nonsense that our opponents, they just can't handle him. Vulnerabilities. So, since the deck relies so heavily on Uril, it can be tricky to rebuild when he dies, meaning, you know, when he dies, all of your auras are going to fall into the grave, and we are going to lose them. We can get it back later, but again, it's kind of in the moment. It's tough to rebuild. So edict effects that make us sack Uril and mass balance effects will ruin Uril. If we just have Uril in the field and someone makes a sack creature with like an effect like Diabolic Edict, like it hurts us. Cyclonic Rift is a format staple, and Cyclonic Rift ruins Uril's day because Overload does not target. Since Uril has a high mana cost, him dying or being countered frequently really makes it harder for us to win, because you gotta think, he starts at 5. If he dies once or gets countered, he goes to 7, and like we need him to win. And 7 mana for our commander that we need to win, he's gotta stick around when we play him. So, I said this earlier, words to clear up. I said double lifelink. So, I'm referring to Armadillo Cloak in this instance. So, if you look at Armadillo Cloak and Unflinching Courage, they both say enchant creature gets +2/+2 and has trample. One says whenever enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life, and the other says lifelink. They do mean the same exact thing, right? That's exactly what lifelink is. However, since this one says whenever enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life, it stacks with lifelink. Lifelink does not normally stack, but this makes it stack. The next word I said was fire breathing. Fire breathing refers to the second ability in this card, so this card is great because it's going to give Uril essentially +3/+3 flying and haste. And fire breathing is the effect of paying a mana and buffing up a creature per mana, right? So this fire breathing effect is pay 1 mana of anything. This creature gets +1/+0 in addition to its other types. Uril can also be a dragon, doesn't matter, right? The use of this, why fire breathing is relevant, is because Uril can get beefed up, right? But when we go to attack, if we're only a couple damage short of killing someone with commander damage, we can just put a couple mana into this and finish them off. So let's go into the deck. Planeswalkers. We have Calyx as our only Planeswalker. We're running him mainly for his minus ability, his -3, but we'll go into it. +1 him, you look at the top 4 cards of your library, you basically show an enchantment. All of our auras are enchantments, and we put it in our hands. So we basically look at the top 4, we put 1, and then we just bottom the other. So we get the best out of the top 4. His minus ability is what we use him for. Exile target creature or enchantment we don't control until target enchantment you control leaves the battlefield. So what we do with this is we basically just want to put those things, like we want to attach the creatures to Url's auras. We do this because using Calyx to minus just is good, because if there's a problem creature that we don't like, it basically makes all of our auras into Oblivion Rings and just, those kinds of effects, right? And Url kind of sticks around a little bit, so it's nice to have them just kind of be O-ringed whenever we need, which is good. And then if we can -7 and we can get all our auras slapped onto Url, that'd be pretty cool. Creatures. Archon of Sun's Grace. So I'm going to go into all of these, but a lot of the creatures in this deck have a purpose. They are either to draw cards, to prevent some kind of effect from happening, or as pseudo Voltron targets or cost reducers. This is a good example of all three of them. Archon of Sun's Grace, right? Flying Lifelink, Pegasus, as you control, have Lifelink. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, make a 2/2 Pegasus with flying, and it's going to have Lifelink. This is good because if someone's making us sack creatures, we can at least start sacking the Pegasi? It doesn't matter. So we can keep Url around. Argothian Enchantress, textbook example of a great Enchantress. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. Our mana curve is pretty low, so we can be constantly drawing cards and playing cards, beefing up Url before combat, and then just decimating someone. Danitha is good. She kind of counts as a cost reducer, and she's also a good Voltron target as a 3-mana 2/2 with First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink. She's going to make our auras cost 1 less. We don't run any. Actually, we run 1 equipment. Guess now what it is. But yeah, so she's kind of like a pseudo target if Url's like uncastable or his mana is like too much or whatever, right? At least she's like a good Voltron target. Destiny Spinner. Creatures and enchantments you control can't be countered. Don't worry about the bottom ability. We just need Url and our auras not being countered. Destiny Spinner does a great job, and a 2/3 for 2 is great. Heliod's Pilgrim, it's just a 1/2 that enters. We're just going to get an aura we like and put it in our hand. That's it. It's just for good situational. We can kill someone if we can get double strike or whatever. Herald of the Pantheon, enchantments cost 1 less. Whenever we cast an enchantment, gain a life pool, doesn't matter, but he's a good cost reducer. Jukai Naturalist. Lifelink, enchantment spells cost 1 less. The cool thing about him is he is an enchantment, so when we have our other enchantress effect, we still draw cards off him. Core Spirit Dancer is probably the best alternative for an Url target. I mean, she's a 0/2, but it doesn't matter because she gets +2/+2 for each aura on her, and then whenever we cast an aura we draw a card, which is very nice because she can get really big and kind of enable herself. Next, we have Mazzy, True Sword Paladin. Mazzy is a 4-mana 3/4, a halfling knight, which is kind of weird. You don't see many halflings in Magic. But whenever an enchanted creature you control attacks one of our opponents, it's going to get +2/+0 and trample until end of turn, which is great. And then mainly, whenever an aura you control is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, exile it, and then until end of our next turn, we can cast it. So if someone's blowing up our auras, or if Url died or whatever, and all his auras go to the grave, we can at least kind of recuperate a little bit by putting them on our other guys. So at least they're not lost, or at least they're not temporarily lost. Miss Enchantress, textbook Enchantress. Whenever you cast an enchantment, draw a card. Very cool. Nomad Mythmaker is a kind of funny card. He's got funny art. Look at his face. He's so shocked. A 3-mana 2/2, but pay a white, tap it, put target enchant creature card from your graveyard into play. Enchant creature is just the old school way of saying auras. It's basically pay mana, put an aura from our graveyard, attach it to Url. Cool. Sanctum Weaver. Just great mana. Dork, we get a ton of mana. 0/2, taps for itself. It's great. Like late game, we're going to be tapping this for like 10 and stuff. It's going to be cool. Satyr Enchanter, whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. Very cool. Setessan Champion is kind of a good Voltron target if we don't have a backup. So Constellation, whenever another enchantment enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on Setessan Champion and draw a card. So we can start beefing up Setessan Champion if we want, but it's just kind of another effect. It's basically just another draw card. But Setessan Champion's nice because it also gets bigger and bigger, so she can kind of deal a lot of damage. And then we have the Dwarf Advisor, Sram himself. Whenever we cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle, we have no vehicles, guys. Url's not driving anywhere. We draw a card. Starfield Mystic, cost reducer. whenever an enchantment we control is put to a graveyard, so if Uril dies or whatever, we just put a ton of level 1 counters on Starfield Mystic. Sethis, Hidden Harvest Hand, legendary enchantment creature nymph. Not many nymphs, but cool. Whenever you cast an enchantment, gain a life, draw a card. She's probably one of the best of them. Umbral Mystic, very good card. Auras attached to permanents you control have totem armor. So totem armor, if an enchanted permanent you control would be destroyed, instead remove all damage from it and destroy an aura attached to it instead. So basically, if we have Uril on the field and someone decides to nuke, they decide to destroy all creatures, instead of Uril dying, if he's not indestructible, we can just get rid of the worst enchantment on Uril and then let him live. And I can guarantee you that getting rid of any enchantment on Uril is worth keeping him alive. And then finally, we have Verduin Enchantress. Again, whenever you cast an enchantment, draw cards. You guys can see, like, this deck kind of funnels. You cast enchantments, draw a bunch of cards, play those enchantments, draw even more cards. It helps you stay consistent. Sorceries, Cultivate, just get some lands, good ramp, Divine Reckoning. Each player chooses a creature they control. We say Uril, so basically destroy all creature. Everyone just keeps one creature, right? And then we can flash it back, and we're always keeping Uril. Farseek, it's just good ramp. We get Jetmir's Garden, pretty much it. Kodama's Reach, it's Cultivate. That's all it is. Open the Armory, search your library for an aura or equipment, put it in our hand. So just kind of like Heliod's Pilgrim, we just get the best aura that we need for the situation. Nature's Lore, just search our deck for a forest card. We can get a shock, we can get Jetmir's Garden and just put it on the battlefield. Nature's Lore is nice because if it enters untapped, if we just get like a basic forest or a shock land, we can make that enter untapped, which is nice. Retether, 4 mana, return each aura card from your graveyard to play. Only creatures can be enchanted this way. Not really relevant for us, the only creatures, but again, we put all auras from our grave straight onto Uril, which is nice. We have round 2, which is really seize the day. Again, 4 mana, untap target creature. After this main phase, there's an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. So round 2, or seize the day rather, is really nice because you can just swing in and chunk someone with Uril and then just pay 4 mana and then do it again and probably kill them. And then if you want, you can just do it again. Slash the ranks, destroy all creatures and planeswalkers except for commanders. We just keep Uril alive. It just nukes, and they can, like, the thing is, our commander, Uril, beefed up with all his auras and stuff, is most likely better than any other commander that's going to be on the field. So it doesn't matter as long as we're getting rid of their big bulk. And then finally, Winds of Wrath, destroy all creatures that aren't enchanted. Guaranteed, most of them aren't anyways, but Uril is, so he sticks around. Instance, Beast Within, get rid of someone we don't like. They can have a 3/3 beast, doesn't matter. Uril's a bigger beast. He's a 5/5, they're a 3/3. Boros Charm is actually very important for this deck. Boros Charm deals 4 damage to target player or planeswalker, doesn't matter, right? But the two important parts, permanents you control gain indestructible until end of turn. If someone nukes, we can at least save Uril. That's a lot of this deck. There's a large focus in this deck of ramping so we can play Uril as soon as possible and keeping him around. So permanents you control gain indestructible. If we don't have something that makes him indestructible for like a little bit and someone destroys all creatures, we can keep Uril alive and at least the rest of our guys alive. And then secondly, target creature gains double strike. We're winning with combat damage, commander damage really, right? So if you attack someone with Uril for like 11 and they're just like, yeah, I'll take it, whatever, they're just dead, right? Or it basically just clean shop, which is very nice. Chaos Warp, we get rid of something we don't like. Hopefully, whatever they spin into isn't nearly as bad. Heroic Intervention, we just keep our stuff hexproof and indestructible. Again, we just don't want Uril dying, and then Teferi's Protection is there just to make sure Uril is not going anywhere. Or if we're just, again, about to lose the game, someone's going to kill us with combat damage or an infinite combo, whatever, we can at least stick around for a little bit. We run like no artifacts. Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone, they are ramp. The only really relevant artifact in this deck is Robe of Stars. And it is 2 mana, equipped creature gets +0/+3, straight up doesn't matter, but what does matter is paying 2 mana, equipped creature phases out. So if something is going on that we just straight up don't like, Uril is out of there. We'll see him next turn, but he is not sticking around. So again, and it keeps all of the stuff with him. So if someone nukes, someone spooks us a little bit, Uril's gone, he'll come back later, and then he'll be able to swing. And then finally, the final other artifact is Sol Ring. I decided not to use many artifact ramp kind of stuff and just go more land ramp. That's why you guys will see a lot. That's why you guys saw a lot of the Cultivate, Kodamas, Nature Sword, Farseek, yada yada yada. Whew. The beef and cheese of this deck are the enchantments. We are an aura deck. All that glitters. You have to, before we start, actually, you have to look at every enchantment as if it was on Uril, and that's how I'm going to be discussing them for the rest of the video, right? So all that glitters is going to at least give Uril, at the very worst, +3/+3, which is good, and +1/+1 for each other artifact and or enchantment we control. So again, we have like 24 enchantments and 4 artifacts at least, so just that, like, that's like 20. I'm not even going to do the math on that. But again, it's over 20 +20 +20, right? Ancestral Mask is basically the same way, but it counts each other enchantment on the battlefield. Not our field, but everyone's field. So if someone's playing enchantments or whatever, like, they're only beefing up Uril, which is nice. And at the very worst, if this is the only enchantment on the field, it still gives Uril +2/+2. Audacity is going to be a 1-mana enchantment that is going to give Uril +4/+2 and trample, and then when it's just put into their graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. This card's kind of nice because at least if Uril does go or someone destroys it or whatever, like, we still kind of replace it. Battle Mastery makes Uril a 7/7 double striker at the very worst, or it'll just make someone straight up die. Bear Umbra is a very cool one because, one, it has totem armor, so if Uril would be destroyed, it's actually gone instead. Or it's going to give Uril +4/+4, and whenever this creature attacks, untap all of our lands. So if we have any post-combat stuff where we want to leave mana up for protection or whatever, it's good. Daybreaker Coronet is a very unique aura, in my opinion. It's a 2-mana aura that you can only enchant to a creature with another aura attached to it, which, again, Uril's going to have that. But it's going to give Uril +5/+5 First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink. God damn, that's a real good aura. And look at that line. He's like, yo, check that out. Dueling Grounds is cool. No more than one creature may attack. No more than one creature can block. Uril is going to win a fight 10 times at a time. Uril doesn't lose fights. He's too strong for him. Eldrazi Conscription, one of the coolest auras, 8 mana if we can get to it, but damn, if we slap this on Uril, it's going to make Uril just straight up immediately a 17/17 Annihilator 2 Trampler. That's insane. That's so good. Enchantress is present. Again, whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. We have a lot of those effects. Hyena Umbra has totem armor, that's why it's good, but it's going to give Uril +3/+3 in First Strike. Mantle of the Ancients is a 5-mana aura that says whenever it enters the battlefield, return any number of target auras and or equipment cards from our graveyard to the battlefield attached to Uril, and then it's going to be give Uril +3/+3. Sorry, +2/+2 naturally, and then +1/+1 for each other aura and equipment attached to it. So it's kind of a mini version of Uril, which is really nice because it mass reanimates, which is sick. And that's it. Literally, if you play that, if you have like late game and you play this, Uril's going to kill someone like that turn, guaranteed, because he's just going to be too big. Ranker is going to give Uril +4/+2 and trample, and if it goes away, it just goes back to our hand. We can cast it later, which is nice because since it's so cheap and it goes away, since we have so many guys that just say whenever you cast an enchantment, draw a card. 1 mana to draw a lot and just kind of recur it is good. Sage's Reverie. It's going to give Uril +2/+2. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card for each aura you control that's attached to that creature. So at the very worst, right? The very worst, it's actually going to be 4 mana, draw a card, give Uril +3/+3, right? It's the very worst. I feel like in a typical environment, it's going to be 4 mana, draw 4 cards. Uril gets +a lot. Good. Shield of the Oversoul. These are the kind of enchantments that are important, or auras that are important, is giving Uril indestructible. Because again, Uril is susceptible to nukes. If someone destroys all creatures, Uril's going along with him. We have to make sure he is indestructible. Shield of the Oversoul is cool because it says as long as an enchanting creature is green, it's indestructible. Uril's green. As long as he's white, he has flying. So this card overall gives Uril +4/+4 indestructible and flying. Very cool. Shielded by Faith is also going to give Uril +2/+2 and indestructible, and whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you may attach Shielded by Faith to that creature. The cool thing about this is if Uril isn't on the field, we can just put this on one of our other guys, and then when Uril does enter the field, it just goes zoops right over to him. Smothering Tithe, that's sure not an aura, but it's really good. We need a lot of mana, right? Because when you have to look at the worst case scenario, people keep killing Uril, right? It's gonna happen. It just happens, right? Very rarely does Uril just stomp out a game. It can happen, but it doesn't happen as often as you think. He usually just kills a player and then like he goes away. But you gotta figure it out. Smothering Tithe is a good addition because as long as we can keep taxing people, 1, they're gonna have less mana. 2, we can have more treasure, which means more mana, which means more Uril, which means more everything. Spirit Mantle is gonna give Uril +3/+3 in pro creature, so he just can't be blocked. Sterling Grove, very good, not an aura, but other enchantments you control have Shroud, so if we put all of our, all of our things on Uril, people can't just blow them up, right? Cool. And then we can also just get rid of it for 1 mana and then just search our library for an enchantment and put it on top. It's kind of a cool effect because you kind of have to go through Sterling Grove before you can go through anything else, right? And if you try and target Sterling Grove, you just pay a mana and you tutor a card. It's kind of cool. Timely Ward, you may cast it as though it had Flash if it targets a commander. It's cool because it's going to give Uril +2/+2 and indestructible. We already talked about Unflinching Courage. I shouldn't have added it back in, but I forgot. Unquestioned Authority, going to give Uril pro creatures +2/+2, and it's going to draw cards, so kind of cool. And then finally, Utopia Straw. It's an aura, but it actually doesn't go on Uril. This is just kind of, it's good ramp because we do have a lot of forests. We have like Jetmir's Garden, and we have all the shocks, and we have all, all the forests and stuff. It's good because it's going to proc off all of our you draw a card kind of effects, which is nice, and it's just good ramp. And fixing, honestly. Let's go to lands. These are not really the colored lands, but more lands with a purpose. Ancient Tomb taps for 2 mana. We need that. Just Uril costs 5 right away, and this is going to basically accelerate us a whole nother turn. 2 damage sucks, but doesn't matter. We start with 40 anyways. This is going to be a hot take, right? But when it enters the battlefield, you choose Beast. Cavern of Souls is solely in this deck to make sure that Uril is not countered. That's it. No other reason. It's meant to cast Uril. Later, we can pay a mana. It's still like a land for a colorless. It's fine. But it's primarily there to make sure that Uril is castable and not countered. Command Beacon, again, we're going to get to an issue where Uril is going to die. He's going to cost, if Uril dies twice, he costs 9 mana. That's almost unattainable in a lot of other decks, right? We can still do it. I think 11 is when we really start tapping out and hurting real bad. But Command Beacon is just a free reset, not reset, but a freebie if you can play Uril for 5. Contested Cliffs, guess what? Uril's a beast, and Uril does not lose fights, so Uril just straight up kills something. Hall of Heliod's Generosity, we put a target enchantment card from our graveyard back on top. If we like an enchantment in our grave and we just want it, it goes back on top at someone's end step, and then we draw it. Kessig Wolf Run. It taps for a colorless, doesn't matter, but we can pay Gruul and X. Target creature gets +X/+O and trample until end of turn. At the very best, it gives Uril essentially fire breathing, which is cool if we're close to killing someone. At the very worst, we pay green, red, and 0 as X, and it just gives Uril trample. Let's go into the colored lands. One's going to go through them quick. We have the Battle Bond Duel, so they enter untapped because we are assuming a pot of 4, being 3 opponents. We have all of the check lands because they're good. They enter untapped most of the time. We have all of the slow lands, which are good. They're not slow, it's just because they're the opposite of the fast lands, which was made back in Kaladesh. They're still really good. They come in untapped turn 3. We have all of the shock lands. And then going into the others land, we have Command Tower, taps for all colors. We have Exotic Orchard, but most likely taps for all colors. It at least will probably tap for 2 colors. I always look at Exotic Orchard as pretty much an untapped Triumph, which I think is cool. We have Jetmir's Garden, we can fetch it, which is really nice, and if we don't like it, we can just cycle it away. And then finally, we have Jungle Shrine, enter to battlefield, tap. That's it, it's just worse Jetmir's Garden. We have 5 plains, 4 mountains, and 5 forests. I decided to use the Fortnite cards because I think they're funny. Miscellaneous about the deck, it's about $437. The cool thing about this deck, though, is since there are so many auras in Magic, you could really customize the hell out of this deck. You can make it crazy expensive, or you can make it dirt cheap, $100, easy budget. The average CMZ for this deck, though, using these cards is about 2.83, and that's mainly there just so we can keep funneling through and making sure that we are hitting all of our, the idea of just cast a spell, draw a couple cards, cast those, put them on Uril, and then swing out. It's basically so we can keep our card draw consistent with our Enchantress effects. Thank you guys for watching. Like, it really helps actually. I'm new to YouTube, but liking really does help out a lot. Subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. I always get so happy when I see a new subscriber. And then comment what you want me to do next. I like making these decks. They're a good time. And if you guys want to see one, I'll for sure build it. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.